Today is Wednesday, the 7th of October, and it has been a hard day for many of us because we have the funeral of our dear friend Jim Newell. This morning, the family gathered at Netherton Lodge and we had an open-air service on the lawn in their garden. Afterwards, the hearse and the cars drove up their long drive, and at the top of the drive, members of the Kirk session were there to pay their respects. As we proceeded, there were many people gathered on Lake Privic, and there were many people gathered at the village theatre, and many people gathered at the football stadium down in the village. And we proceeded to the crematorium, South Lanarkshire. Only the family were able to go inside, but others have been able to watch the service on the video link. During the service, none of us were able to sing, but for music, we played 3 tracks from the Greenhills Male Voices CD. God's Choir in the Sky, I Come to the Garden Alone, and Thou Wilt Keep Him in Perfect Peace, whose mind is stayed on Thee. Jimmy, of course, was a lead performer. We had time for a Bible reading. In my Father's house there are many mansions, and a prayer, and time for a short address. There are so many things that we could say about Jimmy. I don't know where we would find the time, especially in this short video, but I'll try. In his working life, Jimmy was surrounded by and mixed with lots of people. He delighted in his experiences in the Navy and often talked of the awe-inspiring experience of seeing the Aurora Borealis, nature's beauty, the Northern Lights, when he was up beside Iceland during the Cod Wars. During his time in the Navy, he guarded the Forth Railway Bridge, and on one occasion he got permission to go on the deck of a ship in order to wave to his brother, who was on the deck of a passing ship. Jimmy also worked in tailoring, he worked as a porter in a hospital, and he worked in the test beds at Rolls-Royce. In 2003, he appreciated these engines on the trip he made to New York on Concorde, just before it was grounded. Jimmy was brought up in Glasgow and attended St Rollock's Church, where he was christened. So happened that that's where Jessie was christened as well. To cut a long story short, Jim and Jessie were married there on the 26th of August 1960. Together they had their family. Andrew, Brenda, Cameron, Duncan and Graham, and so many more were welcomed as part of their family once they started fostering, and more than 100 children passed through their way. Jessie was always carrying her children, and they both brought these children to church. Can we really imagine that trip to Canada where Jim and Jessie were accompanying 6 children and they had to get through an air traffic strike, meaning it took 4 days to get to their destination. But I think they just took that in their stride, as they always would. On their 25th wedding anniversary, they went on a cruise to Denmark. Other wonderful experiences together included a cruise on QE2 and on the maiden voyage of the Queen Mary 2, as well as on a cruise that took them to places like Luxor, where they dodged the terrorists at that time. On more modest holidays, they learned that if you go to the beach, it's not a good idea to ping a trifle in the car. Jim and Jessie's home for the last 30-odd years has been Netherton Lodge, and it's been a hub for family and friends. Every Friday night they had their barbecue, but on other occasions, church people were also welcome to barbecues, treasure hunts, fireworks and parties. We always appreciated Jessie's garden. From the window in Netherton Lodge, Jim would look out onto the lawn, and he regularly saw foxes with their cubs and even a deer with its young. Jim was a founder member of East Kilbride Thistle Football Club, and he watched and nurtured generations of young men. He took particular pride that in 1983 they won the Junior Cup final at Ibrox, beating Bowness 2-0. Close by the football grounds, of course, is the village theatre, and many people came to pay their respects there this morning because Jim had made a huge contribution to the Green Hills Panto Club since it first began, 30 years ago in Sleeping Beauty, followed by mighty relief as well as joy that we had a successful first show, and many will remember the party back at their house. Jim has played and dressed up as a doctor, a soldier, a peddler, a pirate, Long John Silver, as well as a minister. And for all of the family, there was that particular year of the performance of Pinocchio, where Jim played together with his granddaughter Fiona. After the pantomime season, we would barely get a few weeks off, and then we became Ceilidh players. And in our Easter shows in the church, we sang the Jolson story, old-time music hall, war and peace songs, songs from the shows. And who can forget Jim's song, Bring Him Home, from Les Miserables. It's only the other week that I was looking in the store and I found the silver top hat that Jim had worn at one of these shows. In addition, for about 13 years, Jim was part of the Green Hills Male Voices in our green jackets, white shirts and red bow ties, entertaining clubs and guilds all over East Kilbride and beyond. Jim was our leader and presenter. Undoubtedly, the church played a huge part in Jim's life. It would take wild horses or a very bad back to stop him coming. A lifetime of service was given to the church in Springburn, Westwood and Green Hills Parish Church, where he has been an elder. Jim and Jessie were involved fully in everything, and even across the road in the manse, they both came dressed up for a murder mystery night on more than a couple of occasions. Jim always took a great interest in the international students who came to visit our church. He particularly loved Andy from China, and more recently, a young man came along and said, "My English name is Jimmy," and in an instant, young Jimmy meant we had to have an old Jimmy. Jim rose to the occasion recently of his and Jessie's 60th wedding anniversary. He was happy to see that Jessie was well cared for and looking well. Brenda managed to take an impromptu video where Jim and Jessie are sitting across from each other wearing masks, separated by flowers on the table, and the fullness of Jim's life was summed up in the song that he sang for Jessie. If I had my life to live over again, I would still choose to spend it with you. After that, Jim has had a hard month with hospital at home and died there on the 28th of September, aged 83. Today, we honour Jim with all our thoughts and prayers for him and for his family, and particularly at this time, for Jessie. Thanks be to God for Jim Newell. Amen.